With more than 30 seasons under its belt, The Simpsons has been on the air and now streaming since 1989. But as time goes on, things change, and boy did The Simpsons do a lot of that. From character shifts and multiple controversies that resulted in a ton of animation changes, today The Simpsons is almost unrecognizable compared to its roots. Whether the changes were right is up to you to decide. Number 1. It's changed over the years. Luckily, The Simpsons has never had to face the challenge of recasting its leading man Homer, but that doesn't mean his voice hasn't shifted over the years.
Hey, my voice just changed.
In the first seasons, Homer's voice started off as deep and more serious. As the series progressed, voice actor Dan Castellaneta nailed down how he wanted Homer to sound, and that's how we have his more high-pitched and playful version. Number 2. It hasn't always sounded the same.
Sweet dreams.
Thanks, Mom.
I'm disappointed in you. Now here's a distraction for each of you.
Just like her husband, Marge also underwent a pretty significant voice change. Her voice actor, Julie Kavner, has voiced her since the beginning, but has made Marge's voice sound even raspier over the years. Her voice changes didn't just happen in the show's earlier stages, though. They are ongoing. This makes us wonder if maybe they're somehow intentional? It would make sense to have a voice deepen with age, but as we all know, The Simpsons aren't actually aging. Number 3. They've left realism behind. The Simpsons started back in the 80s as a more traditional sitcom that was situated in realism and family life. But after 30 years, that mundane realism runs out, which means the creators had to start stretching what they call the rubber band reality. So as the series went on, there were more plots that dealt with the supernatural and overall unrealistic. But once the episode is finished, the rubber band always snaps back into place and the Simpsons are back where they started. Number 4. With new technology came more possibilities. Everyone knows that animation styles from the 80s compared to what we have now is almost incomparable, so it's only natural that The Simpsons would adapt to the evolving technology as the years went by. The result is characters that look completely different from when they were first brought to life. In Season 14 is where we can more obviously see the shift of where the animators stopped cell painting and switched to creating the episodes digitally. Number 5. From friendly to culty. The Simpsons have had a lot to figure out over the years, including what kind of role they wanted their side characters to play in The Simpsons' lives. Take Ned Flanders, for instance. In the beginning, he started out as a character who was friendly, a little religious, but that only made him more caring. Today, Flanders is obsessed with his religion, and it's now the sole character trait he has. His change was so apparent that the process has been termed Flanderization. Number 6. They've disappeared. Itchy and Scratchy were a huge part of the early Simpsons days. The cat and mouse basically dominated Season 4 of the show. Remember Itchy and Scratchy the movie? But as the seasons went on, they were featured less, until they barely even popped up anymore. Maybe the creators thought they were overdone, or couldn't grasp onto a storyline they thought was strong enough. Number 7. They wrote her off. Ned wasn't the only Flanders who had controversy over the years. They completely wrote Maude Flanders off of the show in Season 11 when a t-shirt cannon pushed her off the grandstand at the Springfield Speedway and she didn't make it. The truth is, her being written off the show had nothing to do with the character, but her voice actor Maggie Roswell was having issues with production behind the scenes. Anytime they used her character after, she was voiced by Marcia Mitzman Gavin. Number 8. His look completely changed. A lot of you may not have even noticed this change detail in The Simpsons because of how quick creators acted. In his first appearance, Waylon Smithers appeared to have dark skin and blue hair, but during his following appearance, he had yellow skin with gray hair. The creators dusted off the change by saying someone had made a mistake with his coloring. Number 9. There was a policy change. As the years went by and society grew, concerns rose about Caucasian voice actor Hank Azaria playing Apu, a character from India. This prompted a new policy to be put in place where The Simpsons agreed any character of color would be voiced by a person of color. So, Azaria stepped down as Apu and was replaced by Tony Rodriguez. Number 10. Azaria was also Carl's voice. This policy change also saw Azaria step down as Carl, who is now voiced by Alex Dazer. Number 11. The numbers don't add up. Mr. Burns' age is a long-time running joke in The Simpsons. How many times have we heard that he's Springfield's oldest and longest resident? There are even sketches of him chasing children that appear to be from hundreds of years ago. However, in one more recent episode, we find out he's actually an underwhelming 81 years old. Something isn't adding up. Number 12. He was originally born in the 80s. The early years of The Simpsons brought to us a lot of wholesome, at least most of the time, flashbacks of the Simpsons family in its earlier years. This is where we find out Bart is an 80s baby, but in newer episodes where we've got a glimpse of The Simpsons in the 90s, Homer and Marge were childless. Number 13. He's become more mean. Here we have another case of Flanderization. As mentioned earlier, The Simpsons started out as wholesome PG content. Homer was a family man who made a lot of mistakes, but it was with his family's interest at heart. However, today's Homer has been more closed off and mean with his actions, becoming more purposeful instead of accidental. Number 14. Another case of Flanderization. Not only was his appearance changed, but his personality. In this case, Flanderization may have been a good thing for Smithers. He went from an annoying and obsessed worker of Mr. Burns to a character with a beautiful coming-out story that allowed him to overcome Mr. Burns and be his true self. Number 15. Color changes. Maggie hasn't really changed over the past 30 years, and that's because for the most part she's remained a dependent baby. But the creators did slyly change her clothing color from white to purple to blue over the years. Number 16. From slacks to jeans. Like father, like daughter, Homer also has a slight wardrobe change. In his very first iterations, he actually wore a full-blown suit. That was toned down to the more casual Homer we know, but even that outfit got a bit color-corrected over the years. The most iconic part of the whole Simpsons universe has to be the intro, which has also shifted quite a bit over the years. Number 17. Only in the new version. At the very beginning of the intro, you'll notice that the new version includes an image of a stork carrying Maggie across the screen. This never happened in older versions. Number 18. New additions to town. Our first look of Springfield was also adapted as the intro versions were released. You can see how the animation developed, the buildings became more detailed, signs were added, and even Easter eggs from plot happenings throughout the seasons were added. Number 19. Bart's writing something different. Some things never change, like Bart getting detention. But what did change the intro was what Bart was getting detention for. Each new version of the intro had Bart writing something different on the board. You can see in a newer one he writes, "I am not allergic to long division." Number 20. There was a recent swap. In this intro scene behind Homer hard at work is a sign that reads "Caution," until you get to the newer intro where the sign was replaced with a hilarious 3 days without accident sign, while Lenny simultaneously falls off a ladder. Number 21. Swapped out their flutes. We get a glimpse of Lisa in band class in the intro, and that doesn't change in the new version. But what does is that Sherry and Terry are no longer playing flutes. Instead, they're playing games on a device, a more accurate representation of the times. Number 22. Things moved around. While it's less noticeable when watching the show, you can see the changes made to The Simpsons' living room through the intro evolution. The lamps have changed slightly, the couch color has shifted, and their television has changed depending on what decade they're in. Number 23. More than just The Simpsons family. The most noticeable change in the intro is that the creators decided to start highlighting more side characters in it, rather than just The Simpsons family. They created an entire world, why not show it off? Number 24. Getting on with the times. The Simpsons took their time letting go of the past. They were the last show to step away from cell drawings for their episodes. But they did release their first HD episode in Season 20, which drastically changed the coloring and animation of the series. How many of you out there have watched every episode of The Simpsons? Did you notice these changes while watching, or spot one we didn't mention? Share it with the internet in the comments section below. And if you loved this video, make sure you give it a big Springfield thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching The Things Animated.